Good evening. I'm John Lawrence, Sycamore Land Trust Executive Director. Thank you for joining us here tonight for Taking Care, our 2021 annual celebration of Sycamore's conservation work here in southern Indiana. We're disappointed that we aren't able to celebrate with you in person again this year, but we look forward to the time when we can gather again soon. And here tonight, we're inviting you virtually to Sycamore's office, Cedar Crest, so that we can share with you some of our accomplishments from the past year that we're most proud of, and all of which were made possible by supporters just like you. Cedar Crest is the former home of the Caldwell family, Linton, Keith, and Helen Caldwell, and their children, Elaine and Ned. The Caldwells generously donated Cedar Crest to be Sycamore's headquarters. Linton Keith Caldwell is known as the father of the Environmental Impact Statement, and one of the most influential people in the environmental protection movement. I am honored to work at the desk where he drafted the National Environmental Protection Act in 1969, one of the first laws ever written that establishes a broad national framework for protecting our environment. We are so grateful to the Caldwell family for giving us this space to benefit Sycamore's mission, and we strive to continue their legacy through our successful conservation efforts. Sycamore protects over 10,000 acres in southern Indiana. We've completed over 120 land protection projects, and as a result, we own and manage over 50 separate nature preserves and monitor and enforce more than 30 conservation easements. This land is entrusted to all of us, and with the help of supporters like you, we work hard to take good care of it so that nature can thrive. Land stewardship is an ongoing effort and requires a variety of tasks throughout every year. Most basic, but also vital, is regular monitoring of our protected properties. We check boundaries and post signs, and look for any problems that need to be addressed. We look for new invasions of harmful non-native plants, as well as trash dumping and other issues caused by humans. We assist with scientific research on our nature preserves and do our own monitoring of plant and animal communities. At our nature preserves with public access, we build and maintain trails and parking areas and add educational signage. And of course, we manage and restore natural habitat. These projects can range from a 1-acre pollinator planting to planting tens of thousands of trees to restoring dozens of acres of wetlands, as well as annual ongoing efforts to prevent the spread of invasive plants. Through these efforts, we take care of this vital natural habitat so that it will endure for the generations that follow in our footsteps. Next, we're going to take you on a tour of a very special nature preserve in Owen County, which is owned and managed by Sycamore thanks to the support of people like you. In 2017, Sycamore was given Hoot Woods, which contains one of the very few remaining old-growth forests in Indiana. Come with us now as we explore these woods and see what makes them so unique. Hello, I'm John Lawrence, Sycamore Land Trust's Executive Director.
And I'm Ellen Bergen, Land Stewardship Assistant.
And we're here today at Sycamore's Hoot Woods Nature Preserve in Owen County to take you on a special virtual tour. This nature preserve is remarkable because it contains one of the few remaining stands of old-growth forest that are left in the state of Indiana. What is now the state of Indiana covers about 23 million acres. At the time of European settlement, 20 million of those acres were forest. Today, only about 2,000 acres of old-growth woods remain. Hoot Woods was in the Hoot family from the time they emigrated from Germany in 1870 until they donated 80 acres of their land to Sycamore. They left about 60 acres of forest untouched in that time. Hoot Woods has been a focus for preservation and scientific inquiry for over 60 years. Pioneering ecologist Dr. Alton Lindsay published a survey of the trees in Hoot Woods in the Proceedings of the Indiana Academy of Science in 1961. In 1965, Dr. Marion Jackson, another one of Indiana's great ecologists, performed a tree survey that he would repeat every 10 years through 2015. His colleague, Dr. Mark Howell, plans to repeat Jackson's survey this fall in 2021. Beginning in 1967, Dr. Lindsay helped lead an effort to identify Indiana's most important natural areas, which included Hoot Woods. The survey's report was published in 1969 as Natural Areas in Indiana and Their Preservation. In 1973, Hoot Woods was designated a National Natural Landmark by the National Park Service. While this did not convey any legal protection to the property, it was nevertheless an important recognition of the property's significance. In 1981, Alice Hoot donated a conservation easement to the Nature Conservancy to ensure that Hoot Woods would be permanently protected. Dr. Marion Jackson signed the conservation easement as a witness. And then in 2017, Alice Hoot's heirs donated their property ownership to Sycamore for us to care for the land in perpetuity. Ellen's taking a break, sitting on a burl on a wonderfully large white oak tree. Look how big that tree is. And here is an interesting find. Here we've come across yet another large tree. You can see it's dropped some large branches on the ground. Here we have Ellen for scale. And I think this is neat. As you can see, these large branches that came down from this tree just gives you a sense. It can be hard from looking up in the air to get a sense of the size. What a massive tree this is. The neat thing is, great example of the resiliency of nature. Even though it's dropped those big branches, it is still alive. We'll walk up here.
Hello, my name is Allison Schoaf and I am a member of the Hoot family. Ever since my family settled this land back in 1860, they really have preserved the woods. When asked why they never cut any trees down, I found an article that quoted my great-granddad, where he said his dad told them they couldn't take anything out except what had been windblown, lightning struck, or dead from age. And so this attitude really carried through that generation and beyond. And it was Alice Hoot in 1975 that started pursuing a more formal environmental protection on the property. I found letters that she had sent to universities, state agencies, and other organizations talking about what type of program they could offer. In 1982, a conservation easement was placed on the property with the Nature Conservancy. Since then, the woods have remained the same, except for the occasional hiker that goes through, or some research groups that have been out there, but it really has been left untouched and preserved. And it was more recently that the family trust decided it had a lot of members, and it was time to pass it along to an organization who could manage it into the future. And so Sycamore Land Trust was a natural fit for that. We knew how much they valued land preservation and that they would carry on our family's legacy.
Thanks to another research project, we were excited to learn that this black gum tree here at Hoot Woods started growing in the early 1600s, meaning that it is almost 400 years old. Dr. Justin Maxwell, Associate Professor in the Department of Geography at Indiana University, led a tree coring project in 2020 to count and analyze the tree rings of some of the largest trees on this property. Ellen worked with him on this project.
On a beautiful day last fall, Chris Fox and I visited Hoot Woods with Justin to core trees on this property. In addition to working as a land steward for Sycamore, I am also a research assistant in Justin's lab, where I learn about environmental change and Indiana's natural history from what these trees can tell us. Dendrochronology is the science of using tree rings to date both the tree and past environmental conditions it grew under. Tree rings reflect how much a tree grows in a year, so patterns of different sized tree rings can show changes in environmental factors that influence tree growth. Anything from past climate variables like temperature and precipitation, to fire regimes, glacial movement, hurricanes, and much more. We can derive this data from narrow, pencil-sized tree cores that are sampled using an increment borer, a tool that is able to extract cores without causing harm to the tree. After our research visit with Justin last fall, we were able to date this black gum tree all the way back to the early 1600s. Finding and coring old trees like this extends our region's tree ring chronology further back in time, allowing us to analyze how the environment has changed throughout history, so we may be better prepared for the future.
Sycamore, and our supporters like you, are guardians of this important old-growth forest, one of too few that remain in Indiana. While we can't open the property to public visitation due to limited public road access, we will still make sure that these woods remain protected for the plants and animals who live here, and for our children and grandchildren, carrying the Hoot family's conservation legacy forward so that this unique and special place remains protected for forever. Sycamore's conservation mission centers on this phrase, for forever. But you and I won't be here forever, so what do we mean? Protecting land for forever means we need to think long-term in our approach to conservation. We acquire natural areas to protect them now and in the future, but we also must set up this land for future success and ensure its continued success. Habitat restoration and ongoing management are an essential part of this. Tonight, our staff team will show you how we take care of the land that has been trusted to us. Chris, Rob, Ellen, Susan, Ann, and Kate will share some of their favorite stories from the field about the stewardship and restoration work we've accomplished this year. We have a lot to celebrate. Thank you very much for making this possible.
Hi, I'm Chris Fox, Land Stewardship Director for Sycamore Land Trust. and one of the most important parts of my job is to implement our stewardship management plans to ensure we are protecting the land in our care. Habitat restoration begins with the questions, what are we protecting and why? It is important for us to understand the plant and animal communities that call our preserves home so that we can know how best to protect them. This past year, we've been involved in several research projects on our preserves to help us better understand and answer the question, what are we protecting? We installed 13 birdhouses this summer to learn more about bird populations at the Sam Shine Foundation Preserve. Many native cavity nesting birds, like the eastern bluebird, have been impacted by competition from aggressive species introduced from Europe that compete with them for nesting sites. Sycamore staff built these birdhouses with native species in mind, including added features like saw curves so that fledglings have a toehold when they leave the nest. Our first season was more successful than we anticipated. In total, 8 boxes were occupied with 11 nests that fledged 48 young bluebirds and tree swallows. Next year, we plan to build and install even more boxes. The Sam Shine Foundation Preserve is part of our Bean Blossom Creek Bicentennial Conservation Area, which is an important corridor of protected land in the Bean Blossom Creek floodplain north of Bloomington. This area has high conservation value because it protects clean water along the creek and rare wetland and bottomland forest habitat that is declining rapidly in Indiana. On preserves in this area, we initiated a new herpetological study in partnership with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. This project utilizes coverboards that provide shelter for amphibians and reptiles. When we lift up these coverboards, we count the species we find under them to learn more about their populations. This study has been very productive with over 100 observations recorded. So far, we've identified 12 species of reptiles and amphibians, including the state endangered Kirtland snake. The Kirtland snake is imperiled in all states in which it still occurs due to habitat loss. Frogs are good indicators of environmental health and are often considered the canary in the coal mine of wetland. Since their life cycle is tied to water and their skin is so porous, they don't survive well in contaminated areas. Knowing frogs are living on a piece of land is always a good sign, and at Bean Blossom Bottoms in the spring, you can hear thousands of them.
Here we are at the forest deck, listening to a great chorus of chorus frogs singing. I would never have guessed how many frogs are out here using this habitat and how valuable it is for them. If it wasn't for the fact that they sing this time of year and you can hear just how many there are. It's really incredible.
Recently, we've begun to restore and create 85 new acres of wetland habitat in the Bean Blossom Creek Bicentennial Conservation Area. It's important for us to understand what species depend on this type of habitat so we can provide a healthy ecosystem. Sycamore Land Trust wants to get to know the animals that live on the land we protect. This summer, we set up 12 wildlife cameras in and around Bean Blossom Bottoms Nature Preserve at locations we know are frequented by animals, such as game trails, creeks, and this beaver dam that creates a natural bridge. So far, we've captured 37 species on our cameras, and we're still counting. And we're keeping an inventory of what we see. This will give us a baseline to measure the success of Sycamore's large-scale wetland restoration project that will take place in this area over the next 2 years. We've learned so much already from just one summer of having these cameras out in the field. In the next year, or 10 years, we'll be able to gauge the impact of our habitat restoration projects on these animals and know what they need to thrive here. We're excited for what these cameras will capture after we create even more habitat for wildlife in southern Indiana.
Hello, I'm Rob Mccray, Land Preservation Director. An important part of my job is helping Sycamore prioritize which properties we can and should take responsibility for. This decision depends on our capability to responsibly manage these properties to help them return to life-sustaining native habitat. Once we purchase land or partner with a landowner to protect a property, our work has only just begun. The next step is to develop a stewardship plan that renews and restores degraded ecosystems to support the native species of plants and animals we want to see thrive in that area. An important component of encouraging biodiversity is removing invasive plants that compete with and crowd out beneficial native species. Perhaps the most well-known invasive plant in southern Indiana is garlic mustard, which spreads aggressively to crowd out other native species. This year, thanks to help of our staff and many generous volunteers, we had a record year for garlic mustard removal. Many of our properties used to be covered with this stubborn invasive, but with consistent hard work, pulling it by hand each spring before it goes to seed, we are now seeing native plants beginning to once again cover the forest floor. Our stewardship priorities this year have included ambitious invasive removal projects at many of our nature preserves. The largest of these efforts took place at Touch the Earth Natural Area in Tangeman Woods in Bartholomew County. Removal efforts here concentrated on Japanese stiltgrass, which can quickly take over entire areas if it is left unchecked. The application of safe and targeted herbicide helps us stop this plant from crowding out native plants. Marking this with blue dye helps us know which areas have been treated. Woody invasive plants like autumn olive and bush honeysuckle can dominate the forest understory and prevent growth of beneficial native plants and trees. One method to help control invasive woody plants is prescribed fire. Prescribed fire is helpful to establish species like oak and hickory, which are extremely important to support wildlife, but only grow in areas where light can reach the forest floor. In May of 2021, Sycamore conducted its first prescribed burn on a sycamore property at Touch the Earth Natural Area with the help of Habitat Solutions. Just a few months after this burn, new green growth shows the land is bouncing back quickly. In addition to controlling woody invasive plants, this effort will help maintain an existing field opening for pollinator habitat as well as habitat for the American woodcock. Making sure there is room for native flowers, grasses, and trees on our preserves is one of the most important things we can do to benefit the land in our care. This fall, we've been collecting seeds from native milkweed and ironweed flowers at Sycamore Nature Preserves with the help of Indiana Native Seed Communities, a group that promotes growing with locally sourced seeds to produce hardy plants adapted to our region. The seeds we collect will be shared with Pollinator Partnerships Project Wingspan, a landscape enhancement effort that supports imperiled pollinators, including monarchs and the rusty-patched bumblebee. These seeds will be grown in a dedicated greenhouse, and the plants will be redistributed for restoration projects throughout our region, including at Sycamore's nature preserves. We will also grow our own plants with the help of volunteers and to spread the seeds in areas that have been cleared of harmful invasives, creating a healthy and diverse habitat where native species can flourish.
One of the most important messages that Sycamore shares with our supporters is that everyone can take action to protect nature and improve the environment. Creating healthy habitat that supports plants, insects, and animals is just as important in our yards and towns as it is in the natural areas in Sycamore's care. I've learned a lot from Sycamore's stewardship projects and bring that knowledge back to my neighborhood in Bloomington, where I and my neighbors work together to remove invasive plants and create beneficial native habitat to support pollinators. Sycamore prioritizes creating habitat for pollinators because we know that the future of our environment depends on it. This year at our office at Cedar Crest, we've enhanced our rock wall garden and other areas of the property to create life-sustaining habitat. With the help of volunteers Kate Mulligan and Jim Shern and many other botany experts, we carefully chose plants for their value to wildlife. This year we are planting a new 1-acre pollinator garden at Tangeman Woods near Columbus, and we've completed the first step to remove invasive species to make room for beneficial native plants. This spring we sowed native flower and grass seeds so they could germinate in the cold weather, and we're rewarded for our efforts. We've seen thousands of butterflies and bees visit these plantings. While we welcome all pollinators to these habitats, one species we're especially concerned about is a monarch butterfly. This fascinating butterfly is known for its long-range migration to and from Mexico each year to overwinter. Sycamore participates in the Monarch Watch Tagging Program, a large-scale community science project that began in 1992 to help researchers answer questions about their migration. This fall, our stewardship team and volunteers captured monarchs on our preserves to tag them with a tiny, harmless Monarch Watch tag. This tag contains a number that is tracked when the butterfly is recaptured after its migration. The data collected is used in research to help prevent future population decline. In addition to wildflowers and grasses, Sycamore planted hundreds of trees this year to benefit wildlife. We distributed over 400 trees, and in 2022, Sycamore will plant an additional 22,000 new trees in 3 tree plantings in our Bean Blossom Creek Bicentennial Conservation Area. That means by 2022, Sycamore will have planted over 100,000 trees in southern Indiana.
Another lovely day in the field. Literally. Welcome to the wetlands of Signage Preserve. And we are talking wet. Rain or shine, the weather's always fine when you're a land steward.
One of my favorite things about working at our offices at Cedar Crest are the bird feeders outside our windows. It's so enjoyable to work with a team of people who appreciate and want to protect birds, just like I do. This is one of the few organizations that will always pause a meeting to run to the window when someone sees a cool bird. Creating habitat that supports wildlife is an enormously rewarding effort, especially if you're a birder like me. Since we carefully steward Sycamore's preserves to support a diverse community of plants and animals, they are home to hundreds of bird species, including many that are quite uncommon. This is especially true at our wetland preserves. Virtually every species of shorebird and waterfowl in North America use wetlands at some point in their lives. But wetland habitat is rapidly disappearing in Indiana. On 2 preserves in the Bean Blossom Creek Bicentennial Conservation Area, Sycamore's stewardship plans include creating new wetland habitat. This year, we will begin converting farmland at Fick-Stolting Preserve to functioning wetland habitat. Existing field tile will be removed, embankments constructed to catch and retain floodwater from the creek, trees planted to restore native bottomland forest, and a native wildflower meadow created to support pollinators. The lessons we learn from this project will be used next year when we convert an additional 80 acres to wetlands at the nearby Sam Shine Foundation Preserve. This new habitat will attract thousands of birds and other animals that depend on wetland habitat. This year, Sycamore has focused on educating about the importance of wetlands to encourage more Hoosiers to join us in protecting the few that remain. You can learn more about Sycamore's wetland protection efforts in this summer's issue of our Twig newsletter, or take a virtual hike with Dr. Paul Rothrock to learn more about the wetland plant community we protect at Bean Blossom Bottoms, available in the Learn section of our website.
Land stewardship work includes motivating and empowering our local community to support habitat restoration efforts. Connecting people to nature is a big part of our mission, and that's what we do every day at our public nature preserves. These preserves help my family connect with nature, and we spend many happy hours on the trails. With over 30 miles of trails, maintaining them is a significant undertaking. Stream trimming is a big part of the work to keep them open after new spring and summer growth, as well as repairing trails after weather events. Last May, flooding at Bean Blossom Bottoms required hours of extra trail maintenance and monitoring to make it safe for hikers again. We love reading the preserve notes you leave us at our trailheads. This year, we've been working on several trail improvement projects to make it easier to visit. We completed a new educational kiosk, expanded parking, and split rail fencing in the parking area of Touch the Earth Natural Area, and similar trailhead improvements are in the works for Canyon Forest Nature Preserve, Tangeman Woods, and Bean Blossom Bottoms. The goal is to make it easier to access nature while also carefully assessing the number of visitors each sensitive natural area can sustain. New signage projects this year have included educating about successional forest habitat, creating wildlife habitat at our preserves and at home, and a new partnership with Indiana Phenology and the Sierra Club to encourage participating in a citizen science project to observe seasonal changes in nature and help guide our habitat restoration efforts. These signs are the first of many to come in our efforts to expand education at our preserves. The challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic have moved many of our education efforts into the virtual world. This year, we launched our virtual tour series to ensure that those of us with mobility challenges can connect with nature through Sycamore's programs. Visit our virtual tour webpage to explore our preserves with us, and stay tuned for many more planned in the coming years. By connecting people with nature, we build support for Sycamore's mission. Fostering an appreciation for Southern Indiana's natural landscape reminds us all of our responsibility to care for it. Together, we can be good stewards of this land, which is entrusted to all of us.
Growing up at Cedar Crest, not only was my family immersed in nature, we were surrounded by beautiful art. Both art my mother created and art collected from around the world. We were encouraged to create art from nature. My parents especially supported local artists. It is with great joy that I present the first Sycamore Land Trust Art Show at Cedar Crest. This year, children of all ages submitted gorgeous artwork to Sycamore's Nature Discovery Art Contest. All entries are on display at Sycamore Land Trust's website in a virtual art gallery and will be on display in local senior centers in 2022 to help connect people with nature during the COVID pandemic. The following selections will be featured in our 2022 Kids Nature Discovery Calendar.
It's important to protect nature so trees can grow and clean up the trash so the animals are safe and happy.
I think nature is beautiful and it is important to protect it because if we don't, a lot of animals' homes will be destroyed, and it helps a lot of people, and it helps helps with pollution to stop it, and it gives us clean oxygen.
My name is Kai With. This is the Kingdom of Fantasy Flowers. This picture shows that plants need love, rain, and sunlight and soil to grow. My favorite flower is the violet, cause you can eat it, and they also have you can use them in yummy cookies. Yum.
Hi, my name is Nico. I'm 5 years old. What do you think of it? I drew my grandma's garden. I like to do picnics under the cherry blossom. Hi, my name is Maya, and today I will be entering this picture. Its name is Gorgeous Rainbow with the Sun. And I really like the rainbow and the sun. That's pretty much where it got its name, because it's Gorgeous Rainbow of the Sun. I mean, with the sun. And I really love rainbows. It's one of my favorite things to observe in nature.
My name is Madeline, and I decided to make a painting called The Beauty of the Night, because the night is beautiful, like the hooting of the owls and the chirping of the crickets and the croaking of the frogs. And it's important to keep this ecosystem alive for the day and night creatures. In my painting, I drew flowers and bats and trees and crickets, and this ecosystem is very special.
I was inspired by my yard and all the things that live inside it, like the chipmunk I named Chippy. One reason it is important to protect the earth is because we all live in it on just one planet, and that is why I created this piece of artwork.
I drew this picture of the fox family in a clearing, and the mom and little boy are looking at the last falling leaf, and the little girl is distracted and looking at a hollow tree. I colored this picture with water paint, and if we didn't protect the world around us and all the plants and animals in it, there wouldn't be a beautiful world to live in. And if there wasn't a beautiful world to live in, life would be miserable without it.
Hi, I'm Elise. I was inspired to make this picture by the scene behind me of a tom and several hen turkeys. I think it is important to protect nature so there could be places like this for turkeys.
I drew the white oak tree, and it is important to save nature, this part of nature, because they give us oxygen and keep us alive.
I'm Judy Stewart and my husband,
Michael Fulton,
and our wonderful dog, Okie, and we are here at Trevlak Bluffs Nature Preserve, and Trevlak Bluffs is in our home county, Brown County. Michael and I support Sycamore Land Trust, and I volunteer on their board because we believe that it's vital to protect and preserve these natural areas and natural habitats. And we're happy to sponsor Trevlak Bluffs, and this summer sponsor a preserve program. This year, that program benefits Sycamore Land Trust's ongoing stewardship work on the lands that are entrusted to us. because preserving and protecting and caring for natural areas involves a lot of ongoing work, not only in terms of building and maintaining trails so that we can all enjoy it, but actually preserving and maintaining the habitat, natural habitat itself. Work like reducing the presence of invasive species so that our own native plants and animals can thrive.
I think it's very important while enjoying the preserve that you practice the leave no trace principles. Take only pictures, leave only footprints.
And on behalf of Sycamore Land Trust, we want to thank all of the sponsors this year, all the individuals and the businesses and the organizations that did sponsor a preserve, because your sponsorship and your generosity enable us to help preserve and maintain these natural habitats for the animals and plants that live here and that make these natural areas so special for all of us to enjoy.
And like the sign says, Sycamore needs you. Our habitat restoration and protection work and the maintenance and building of our trails can't happen without you. So thanks very much to all our supporters, and if you're not a member yet, I hope you'll become one. Thanks very much. We're very proud of everything we've accomplished together this year to create resilient land that will sustain nature for generations to come. Thank you to this year's Sponsor Preserve sponsors who supported the stewardship and management of our public nature preserves this summer, and to all our donors who make this work possible all year long. Tonight has been all about taking care of the land entrusted to us. There are many ways Sycamore takes care of our 121 protected properties.
We make an effort to understand the wildlife communities in our care.
We help restore nature's balance and create room for native habitat.
We plan for the future by planting habitat to sustain wildlife.
We preserve diminishing habitats like wetlands for the species that rely on them.
We connect people to nature and empower our community to help us protect it.
And we inspire future generations to follow in our footsteps.
So that's how we protect land for forever. Thank you so very much for your role in this important work, and I hope to see you on the trails.